The proceedings of the briefing session are electronically recorded in accordance with the Council's recording and live streaming of Council meetings Council policy, except for matters of a confidential nature. The guide in determining those matters of a confidential nature shall be in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995. Please note, briefing sessions are audio recorded and live streamed only in accordance with the Council's policy. Meetings will also be made available on the City's website following the meeting. Members of the public gallery are reminded it is a requirement under the Meeting Procedures Local Law 2013 to act in a courteous and respectful manner while in the Council chamber. You're asked to show respect to anyone who is exercising their right to ask questions of the Council and/or deliver public statements. I ask that respect extend to such people whenever they are on City premises while waiting for or having taken their opportunity to ask questions or deliver a public statement. Under the local law, a person must not create a disturbance by interrupting or interfering with the orderly conduct of proceedings. This includes expressing approval or dissent by conversing or by any other means. Using personal electronic recording devices to record anyone or the meeting is also prohibited under the City's local law. I would also like to remind members of the public to show proper respect to the City's elected members and staff during these proceedings. The next item of business is declarations of interest. Do any councillors or staff have declarations for tonight's meeting? Thank you. Councillor Vinciulo.
Thank you. Through you, I'll be putting one in for 12.10.
Thank you. And just the extent of the interest as well, and the type?
Yep, I'm a patron for the North Shore Community Hub.
Okay, so an interest that may affect impartiality?
Correct.
Thank you. Any further interests? Thank you. We then move on to deputations. We've received notice for one deputation tonight, and that's from Mrs. Susan North. So if you'd like to come forward, and it's a deputation on item 12.9. So whenever you're ready, Sue.
Sue North, 47 Parkwood Avenue, Woodvale. Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. My deputation tonight is on item 12.9, the Corporate Business Plan Quarter 3 report. At the Ordinary Council meeting of the 26th of May, you'll be asked to approve amending milestones associated with the library strategy that will postpone this already much delayed project and take the strategy back to the project planning stage. This, I believe, presents a real risk for the city, which in straitened physical times is quite rightly considering the value and efficiency of its services. I am and always will be passionate about the difference a public library service makes in a community. A progressive service provides real value to individuals, to the vibrancy and activity of suburbs, and in supporting the strategic outcomes of the city. Good strategic planning is essential to guide operational practice and inform service levels. In Joondalup, our library service is well used and valued. However, as important as our libraries are, the challenges facing them are complex and varied, and as the needs of the community evolves, so must our libraries. Next slide, please. Having a clear strategy to guide the future development of Joondalup's libraries matters in strengthening accountability and transparency in the community. It gives confidence that the libraries are using public funds responsibly. A clear strategy provides certainty and direction for staff. Trust me, I'm a librarian. I know that librarians find change difficult, but they respond to it best when they have a really clear understanding of what is required and what we're aiming to do. The city needs to provide a clear direction to support resilient staff who are prepared to be brave, try new things, build new skills and knowledge to support new and changing needs in our community. Good strategic planning will help with this. A library strategy matters so that you as elected members can be confident that when you're considering library funding, it's purposeful, future-focused, and most importantly, is providing what our community needs most. A strategy is critical for elected members to inform the allocation of resources that are finite, whether that be staffing, collections, technology, buildings, or learning programs. Next slide, please. I'm aware of at least some of the significant work that's already gone into the development of the strategy. Considerable staff time has already been put into the plan. In 2022, the Strategic Community Reference Group considered what was required of a plan. The expensive and time-consuming work of undertaking surveys and focus groups with users and non-users has been conducted by a consultant as part of a library services review. This comprehensive review was conducted in late 2024 by a highly regarded Australian consultancy. It was commissioned by the City in light of, and I quote from the City's RFQ, increasing challenges faced by public libraries in terms of changing demographics, extensive and rapid technological growth, and economic and social change. The RFQ also notes that, and I quote, from the RFQ, there have been no significant changes to its, that is Joondalup's library service, since 2004, leaving the effectiveness of the service uncertain. End of quote. In its findings, the report acknowledges the good level of service that libraries provide. As you would expect, it also identifies areas where the libraries can improve their value and efficiency. The review made 9 Tier 1 recommendations and 36 Tier 2 operational recommendations for improvements. Notably, the review calls for a more disciplined approach to strategic planning. And its first recommendation, its recommended number 1 action, is to develop a 5-year Joondalup Library strategic plan. I believe this is logical and sensible, as I would expect the strategy to guide implementation of the other recommendations. But almost 18 months on from the review, we don't have a strategic plan for our libraries. However, there's been some ad hoc implementation of recommendations. As a consequence, accountability in prioritising community outcomes and advocacy to policymakers and funding bodies, most notably yourselves as elected members, is not as strong as it should be. For example, some work has already been done on recommendation 4, integrating Joondalup Library's reference collection into the city's 4 libraries. This is a long overdue and much needed initiative. It will free up space at Joondalup Library that could be used for in-demand initiatives identified by the consultant via community consultation. Unfortunately, I'm told there are no fixed plans for the soon-to-be freed up reference area, but I've also been informed that an architect has been engaged to consider designs for the space. I don't understand this approach. An endorsed strategy should be used to inform and prioritise future needs and engagement approaches for our library services and spaces. The review identified a need to improve engagement with library users and non-users, and there's a real opportunity with this initiative to use a co-design approach to planning this soon-to-be vacant space, where the community and elected members put forward ideas with staff and designers to plan a new space and services that works for the community and supports city priorities such as the activation of the city centre precinct. The community consultation identifies offerings focusing on stronger, more creative communities, economic and workforce development, and media literacy. The city needs an endorsed library strategy to guide the evolution of its service, not the ad hoc approach we're currently seeing. Final slide, please. While I understand that it takes time to develop a library strategy, the constant delays we've had over the past few years are not useful in ensuring we have the most effective and efficient library service possible. Let me take you back 12 months. At the Ordinary Council meeting in May 25, you were requested to consider a recommendation on the then Community Youth Development and Libraries Plan. It read, quote, "The development of the draft plan will not be ready to be presented to elected members seeking feedback in Q4. The libraries component is closer to completion than the community and youth development aspects of the plan. The City is investigating options to finalise and begin implementing the libraries component of the plan." At this time, elected members endorsed the recommendation that the strategy be delivered in Q2 of this current financial year. In November 25, it was amended to Q4. Now you're being asked to endorse going backwards and reviewing and revising the project plan with no commitment of a date a strategy will actually be provided to you. I urge you not to endorse the recommendation of a reviewed and revised project plan. Rather, set a date for a draft library strategy to be submitted to Council. I note that the Community Development Plan has also been delayed, and the recommendation is that a new project plan be developed for this. I could speculate that this and the library strategy will be combined. I think this would be a wasteful mistake. A clear vision and priorities for future services needs to be recognised as a matter of urgency in a strategic document that is transparent and available for the community and elected members as well as staff. From here, it's a desktop exercise to draft the strategy. All the hard work's been done. It should be able to be done within a few weeks. Most library strategies run to 5 or 6 pages maximum. I acknowledge there are processes within the city that the draft will have to go through for discussion and approval, and that a new CEO will come on board at the end of the month. All this considered, it's perfectly reasonable to think that a strategy should be able to come back to the Council within 3 months. To reiterate, I urge you not to endorse the Q4 recommendation as presented. Instead, amend the recommendation to develop the strategy with a commitment for the strategy to be presented to elected members in the first quarter of the 26-27 financial year. I welcome questions from elected members, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms North. Any questions from council members? Councillor May.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, for you. Thank you for the presentation, Sue. Just a question. Have you received any response from city officers regarding why the milestones are changing for the libraries plan?
I certainly have spoken to them, and they have talked about changing times, which I understand. I would argue that a strategic direction in changing and uncertain times is even more important.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for your time this evening. Could I ask a question of the city in relation to the topic?
You'll have to wait to the item for us to, so it's just questions to Ms North.
Okay.
Any questions for our presenter this evening? I do have one for you. It relates to your comment earlier on. You said that librarians find change difficult and that having a clear strategic direction helps overcome that. When you say they find change difficult, what is, in your experience as a librarian, what principally does that focus around?
Look, I think libraries by their very nature are quite conservative. Librarians are conservative. I don't think Joondalup's unique in that, but librarians do what they feel comfortable doing, and it's hard for them to move outside their comfort zone. You need, as an organisation, you need to support any moves, and there will be change with a new strategic direction. I would anticipate that there would be changes to processes and to work, and the city needs to support that. But I think the first step is providing an understanding of where you're heading and what is involved. And once you can do that, you can start the practical work of supporting your staff towards that.
Thank you. And just a further question, you were speaking about the space about allocating, reallocating the reference library section from the Joondalup Library into some of the other branches as well. In your experience, because I know you have a fair amount both with the State Library and other local libraries as well, do you have any examples about how that space could be used? I know you spoke about a co-designing process and a consultative process, but from what you've seen in other libraries around Perth, or even interstate, what would you say is the type of spaces that could be foreseen in that?
It's a great question. And look, I think there are a multitude of uses. I think one of the things that comes through very, very strongly in the review that was done is how appreciated that space is by people working in the doing employment type work, whether they be people working from home, businesses wanting a safe communal meeting space, and students studying. So I think you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You want to support that, but it's a big space. And I really think when the city is looking at activating its city centre precinct, there are things you could do, particularly in the workforce development space. I guess one of the things that perhaps some of you will be familiar with is the new City of Wanneroo Library, where they have some amazing facilities like podcast studios. I think the thing to remember about Wanneroo, I don't think that model can just transfer to Joondalup, but the thing to remember about Wanneroo is they did a lot of community consultation around that. They had a really clear concept plan. They had a really clear strategic direction. And I think if you've got those things as the first step, then you work about what will go into that space. So I don't have a problem with the fact that they haven't decided on what's going into the space, but there doesn't seem to be a process to decide.
Okay. All right, thank you, Ms. North. Is there anybody else who wishes to ask a final question of our presenter? No, that's it. Thank you, Ms. North. Thank you for your presentation. That's all the deputations which we have for tonight. We then move to public question time. There's a set of procedures relating to public question time, and I request that you follow my direction at all times. You have the opportunity to ask 2 questions, and your question should be directed to myself as chair and be asked in a polite and respectful manner. Questions asked at a briefing session must relate to a report listed on the briefing session agenda. We keep a register of those people who wish to ask questions, and the first person on our list is Nikki Dangle. If you'd like to come forward and state your name and address, and then ask your questions.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, councillors. I'm having difficulty breathing, so please bear with me. At this briefing, I'm referring to an attachment, page 9, in brackets 12.3.1. It refers to the City of Joondalup's Public Health Plan 2026 to 2031. The key focus I'm looking at is environment, page 30. So the question is, in view of no community consultation, it seems that there was just a strategic group. I asked the city to refuse option number 1 and accept option 2 as a review in light of the fact the whole community was not consulted. I speak now for myself. I do not and have not felt safe in the community.
Ms. Dangle, sorry, this is public question time.
Yes.
So if you have a statement, I can get
The
you.
question,
into
sorry.
Oh,
The
sorry.
question is, when will the city do a full community consultation rather than just a few key people? The community is a lot deeper than you would imagine.
Yep. Thank you. We'll go to the Director for Planning.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. There was the plan, the issues that are addressed in the plan went to the Strategic Community Reference Group, as you stated, but it also went out to consultation to the community. It went internally to the business unit managers, and other stakeholders were involved. There was a list of consultation that took place.
Thank you. Do you have a second question?
Thank you. It's difficult to agree with that because we weren't consulted. When will the inspection of home business premises occur in order to manage public health risks occurring in R20 code areas, where we are getting more and more home businesses that are actually industrialised practices that possibly should be in Winton Road? Noise, toxic fumes. I won't go on because I've already addressed it, but your main objective was keeping people feeling safe and healthy. My question is, why don't I feel safe and healthy with your policies?
I'll go to the Director for Planning as well.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, and pass this question on to the Manager of Compliance.
Thank you for your question. Through you, Mr. Mayor. In relation to home businesses and impacts associated with home businesses, these aren't directly considered in the public health plan. However, the city does respond to any concerns, complaints about businesses. We have a team that investigate home businesses for compliance. We also have an environmental health team that can look at impacts being experienced at adjacent properties. Should there be odours or fumes of that kind of thing? We do have a team that can investigate specific concerns and assess whether or not the business is compliant with the regulations and legislation that the city administers.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions. The next person on our list is Ms. Suzanne Apps.
Suzanne Apps, 11 Pennant Place, Woodvale. Re-item 12.9 and 12.10. In the Corporate Business Review, 12.9.1, it states on page 310 of the agenda attachment, the City did not advertise the second round of corporate sponsorship as referred to in item 12.10. The corporate sponsorship policy states the applicants will be reviewed in a competitive process, so basically no fair disadvantage or no unfair advantages. The City stated they contacted previous recipients by email, regardless of the budget constraint. How can this round of corporate sponsorship be justified to align with the policy and be seen as fair from others in the community? Maybe we should go back to the drawing board and give everyone a fair go.
Thank you for your question. We'll go to Director Parry or the relevant manager.
Thank you for, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Yes, due to some budget constraints, that promotion, I guess, or the widespread promotion of the sponsorship round wasn't undertaken. However, round 2 remained on our website for all community organisations to be able to make applications. And we did, as you've alluded to, email those community organisations that had previously participated in sponsorship and events, and we knew were likely to be event runners again in the near future. So the applications still were on our website for organisations to be able to make applications.
Thank you. Your second question.
I have a follow-up question in the general meeting, but I'll go on to the next one. I noted in 12.10 that a number of the corporate sponsorship recipients have received funding numerous times before, which does seem more like a multi-year agreement. What is of concern is that the corporate sponsorship policy states, under funding terms, once a recipient has received funding for 3 consecutive years, then regardless of the funding amount, then it must go before council. Why have these applications not been presented to council for approval?
Thank you for your question. We'll go to the Director for Governance again.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for the question as well. The corporate sponsorship program policy, which you are referring to, did have that new condition, and that was revised in November 2024, and that condition was applied since July 2025. So that condition wasn't intended to be retrospective. However, it has needed to be. We have provided notice to all prospective candidates. So from July 2025, all of those who have applied for 3 years in a row will be subject to applying to the council. So it's not retrospective.
Thank you for your questions, Ms. Apps.
I'll have some more in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public gallery who wishes to ask a question? Mr. Sideris at the back.
I don't know whether to laugh or cry. Mitch Sideris, 12 Page Drive, Mullaloo. Representing the Mullaloo Community Incorporated as a resident ratepayer group, I go back to the questions and the answers asked by Nikki Danga dealing with the city's health policy. I congratulate the city on the fact that it's actually gone out and done an internal review, held workshops, prepared a green paper and presented it to elected members. Even talked to an occasional strategic group. When will the city to go out and present that policy to the broader community for comment? Because it's a policy that affects all resident ratepayers of the city.
Thank you, Mr. Sideris. We'll go to the Director for Planning.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll pass that to the Manager of Regulatory Services.
I didn't hear the answer at all.
Oh, it's just being passed to the relevant manager to provide you an answer, Mr. Sideris.
Thank you for your question. Through you, Mr Mayor, we, as part of the consultation, we considered the various ways in which we could consult with the community. Ultimately, we chose to consult with a wide range of community groups. We did invite several hundred community groups and their representatives to attend. We had the SCRG meeting, which has been mentioned, which is obviously not the same as consulting with the entire community, but it is representative of some of the views of the community. Ultimately, we also had time constraints with this plan. The public health plan published by the state was published in June last year, and we have to have ours published by June the 4th this year. So we're working with some of those constraints. So at this point in time, this report is going to council for endorsement, given the legal requirement that the city has to have a plan in place by June 4th this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sideris, your second question.
I'll come back to the health, what is it, the city health policy. It's a good job you've done, but based on the last response, it's taken you a year to get to this point, and now you want to tick the box and get it done by June. When will it go out for full community consultation, irrespective of what you submit? It's a 5-year plan. It affects us all.
Thank you, Mr. Sideris.
Come back to the question. When?
Go to Mr. Temprisia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and responding through you, as has been indicated by the Director and the Manager, Compliance Regulatory Services, the City worked against the timeline, and at this stage there is currently not intended to go out for full public consultation on this plan.
So we'll never know as a broader community.
Thank you, Mr. Sideris. Is there anybody else from the public gallery who wishes to ask a question? No, thank you. In that case, I declare public question time closed and move to public statement time. There is a set of procedures relating to public statement time, and I request that you follow my direction at all times. You are able to make a statement for up to 2 minutes, and your statement should be directed to myself as chair and be polite and respectful. No questions or discussion will occur at the end of the statement. Statements made at a briefing session must relate to a report listed on the briefing session agenda. Again, we keep a register of those people wishing to make a statement. So I then call forward Ms. Nikki Danger.
The Strategic Community Reference Group meeting on the 19th of March 2025 for the development of a public health plan has not considered the planned outcome 1.1, healthy and safe in terms of environmental health. Some families, from my understanding, around about in my area, which was not consulted, some families are being very stressed by increased industrializations of our 20 homes. These are little houses, they're not factories, and they're being approved as home businesses. We don't mind the nail technicians, and we don't mind the little bit of a massage. We do mind poisonous fumes. We like clean air. It's an act of Parliament. We are protected in law. Clean air. I think we need to be asking more families how they are being affected about noisy environmental hazards from backyard mechanics and large plumbing companies in our 20 huge vehicles, multiple vehicles on small blocks. Increased traffic in a crescent which is not conducive with a peaceful, healthy life. especially when the poor kids are trying to run to get to school and there's no footpath. It's chaos around my street. We need to keep safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dangle. The other person on our register is Ms. Faye Gilbert, but you've identified item number 11 on the agenda, which is the briefing session element relating to petitions. So under the approved procedures that the council has endorsed for briefing sessions, I can only permit public statements on reports, which is items listed under point 12 of the council agenda, of the briefing session agenda. So I'm sorry to say I can't allow you to have a public statement on item 11 on tonight's agenda, but there's the council meeting in 2 weeks and you're welcome to come forward and I'll put your name at the head of the list if there's many people on it. Is there anybody else from the public who wishes to make a statement? Mr. Sideris.
Yeah, Mitch Sideris, Page Drive, Mullu, and on behalf of the Mullu Community Incorporated, I really am not surprised, but I think the city's done an excellent job in preparing a paper dealing with policy for citywide health. The thing is, it hasn't been circulated. And I understand, based on the answers, that you've got a deadline to meet, which is the end of what, 4th of June or something. Then can I suggest to this council, adopt those recommendations, whatever it may be, and then add on it that it actually puts it out and puts it into the community and circulates it so that we all know that there is a policy, that the city has this policy dealing with citywide health. Apart from, it's just, that's all. Just give it consideration. Put it out there. You might have consulted, I think the words are hundreds of community groups. Boy, I wouldn't want to have a list of all those, because as a community group and as a resident ratepayer group, we weren't consulted. We received nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sideris. Is there anybody further from the public gallery who wishes to make a statement? No? Thank you. I declare public statement time closed then. I've received a declaration of interest from Councillor May. It's an interest that may affect impartiality. It's for item 1210. Councillor May is a former committee member of the North Shore Community Hub. The next item is apologies and leaves of absence. For tonight's meeting, I've received one apology, which is from Councillor Pizzi. There's also some future leaves of absence which have been approved. Are there any elected members seeking a leave of absence to be approved at this month's council meeting? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 4th to the 7th of August, please.
Thank you. Do we have that captured? Yep. Thank you. Any other elected members? Councillor Hill.
Yes, thank you. The dates are Monday the 15th of June to Sunday 21st of June inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further elected members? No, thank you. We then move to the next item on tonight's agenda, which is confirmation of minutes, which will be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting held on the 26th. Announcements by the presiding member without discussion will also be dealt with at that meeting. We then move to identification of matters for which the meeting may be closed to the public. The following items may be dealt with behind closed doors if there are any questions on the confidential items. So there's one confidential report, which is item 12.4, status of legal actions, and 2 reports with confidential attachments, which is item 12.13.3, which is the Joondalup Surf Life Saving Change Room refurbishment. And item 12.15.3, which is the tender provision of cleaning services for buildings and public toilets. Are there any elected members who wish to ask questions on those items tonight? Or the attachments? No? Thank you. The city has received, moving then to petitions, the city has received one new petition to be considered at the council meeting held on the 26th of May. It's a petition requesting council reassess the design of roadworks on North Shore Drive, Callaroo, to ensure retention of mature trees. The petition requests that we, the undersigned, all being electors of the city of Joondalup, do request that Council 1 defer any works requiring tree removal on North Shore Drive pending formal council consideration of the findings of the median width investigation required under clause 11.3 of the resolution passed on the 24th of March. And 2, require the Chief Executive Officer to report back to Council with the findings of that investigation, including whether a reduced median width would eliminate or reduce the need for tree removal in the eastern verge south of Mullalu Drive within 60 days of this petition being formally received by the Council and before any irreversible works commence. Are there any other petitions being sought by elected members to be submitted to this month's Council meeting? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's the same petition, but this is the handwritten one, which has some additional 124 signatures on it.
Thank you. If we can just submit those to governance and then we can have that petition checked for validity for this month's council meeting. Moving then on to the reports section of tonight's agenda, we have a couple of presentations from the officers on item 12.3, the public health plan, item 12.8, appointment of independent persons to perform the functions under the code of conduct, and item 12.14. So as is our usual practice, I'll start at the beginning of the agenda and we'll ask for questions on each of the items. So starting off with item 12.1, any questions on this item? Development and subdivision applications. Thank you. Item 12.2, petition to review parking local law. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Question regarding how many infringements the city issues for people parking unattached trailers on verges.
I'll go to the Director for Planning.
Through you, Mr Mayor. I don't have the details of that to hand. It's pretty difficult for us to gather that. Well, the complaints come through lots of different portals, but I can get the amount of infringements and get that information to you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Similarly, if they're just complaints of which warnings or a request is made to move it, if we're able to have a tally of how many complaints come in over whatever period, to understand the extent of this being an issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yeah, we can pull that together and bring it back. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
In terms of the extent, so do we enforce it only if the trailer caravan is entirely on the verge, almost what proportion is on the verge before it's enforced?
Yep, Director.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. I'm not sure of the specifics. It's action through two means. If during a ranger patrol they see that the trailer or the caravan's overhanging, then they generally use it as an educational process. They'll ask them to move it. And it's only really repeat offenders where an infringement would occur. And the other way is if we actually get complaints that come in, we'll go out and action it.
Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Any further questions on this item? Councillor Hill.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to check with the Director on what information is available to residents on the City of Joondalup website which details the city's requirements and regulations regarding parking of trailers, caravans, boats, etc. on residential verges. Thank you.
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor. I'm not sure. I haven't checked. I can get back to you with that information. Thank you.
Yes, if there is any existing documentation available on the website, if that can be provided in the pack, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Has the city undertaken any benchmarking on other WA local governments that allow limited verge parking of trailers or caravans under permit systems? And if so, what were the outcomes? Thank you.
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor. My understanding is through a recent review of the local law, there was some benchmarking of other WA governments. Yeah, early 2024. And as part of this process, the Parking Project Officer conducted a comparative review. Most of the urban local governments were pretty similar. The review was limited to comparable urban local governments. I understand some rural local governments, and regional local governments will have a different take on it. But it was found that none permit verge parking of unattached trailers and caravans. Some rural local governments may operate under different local laws, and their regulatory context and land use characteristics are a bit different. But therefore, it wasn't really considered comparable to ours, and the City of Joondalup has generally been quite conservative in their parking.
Councillor.
Thank you. I had some other questions, but I'm happy to take those on notice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? Thank you. In that case, we'll then move to item 12.5, status of council decisions. Oh, sorry, 12.3, the City of Joondalup Public Health Plan. Any questions on this item?
So we have a presentation.
Oh, sorry, we have a presentation, that's correct.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The Council tonight are being asked to endorse the City of Joondalup's Public Health Plan 2026 to 2031. The purpose of the Public Health Plan. Part 5 of the Public Health Plan 2016 required the Chief Health Officer to publish a State Public Health Plan by the 4th of June 2025, and each local government then had to prepare and publish a local public health plan by 4th of June 2026. The timing is deliberate because local public health plans must be consistent with the State Public Health Plan. Under the Public Health Act 2016, the City's local public health plan must be consistent with the State Public Health Plan. It must apply to the City's district, identify the public health needs of the community, and consider data on health status and the factors that influence health. And then it must set priorities and explain how they will be delivered. The plan outlines the City's approach to supporting public health through the range of services provided by the City that contribute to the health and well-being. How the plan was informed. The City reviewed relevant legislation, strategies and plans at the City, State and Commonwealth levels. It also worked with the North Metropolitan Health Service to obtain data on local health status and the factors that influence health. A community profile based on this data was then prepared. The data and community profile were presented to the Strategic Community Reference Group on the 19th of March 2025 to support identification of key priorities and clarify the City's role in addressing them. To guide broader engagement, a series of consultation workshops were also undertaken. Consultation activities included an external stakeholder workshop on the 19th of August 2025 to identify needs, confirm priorities and gather ideas. A community workshop on the 19th of August 2025 and an internal staff workshop on the 22nd of August 2025 also reviewed the current programmes and identified future opportunities. Following the workshops, a draft public health plan was prepared and feedback was then sought from business unit managers. An updated draft was then presented to the executive leadership team and provided to elected members for comment via a green paper. The draft plan was subsequently updated in response to feedback received. The plan identifies goals in 3 key focus areas. Those are mental health and well-being, active and healthy living, environmental health and resilience. The plan groups together the City's existing and proposed actions and initiatives under each of these key focus areas to demonstrate how each focus area is supported by the City. All of the projects and initiatives identified are already identified through the City's corporate business plan and/or individual business unit plans. As such, there are no new funding commitments specifically included in the plan, and any activities or actions captured would remain subject to council endorsement and budget constraints.
Thank you, Director. Any questions on the plan now? Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Mayor. Has the City measured whether the public health plan is actually improving community outcomes over the 5 years? Sorry, how will?
Director. Relevant manager.
Thank you for your question. in terms of measuring the outcomes or the achievements of the public health plan, direct correlation between community health outcomes and the various actions that the city undertake may be difficult to establish, as the health of our community is complex and influenced by many determinants of health, including matters that the city has no direct ability to influence. The city's public health plan will be reviewed annually, and that will assess the progress of the actions identified. It will also be an opportunity to consider any emerging issues, and as new data becomes available from the Department of Health, it may be that we identify over time that there are trends in particular areas, and through that review we can then consider allocating or focusing more on one particular area where there might be a need. We'll also it'll also be an opportunity for us to assess actions that we have undertaken and determine whether there is any measurable or discernible impact. But as I said previously, because health, public health is influenced by a wide range of different factors, to draw any conclusions that an improvement in one particular area is a direct result of the city's public health plan be quite difficult to actually measure and determine.
Councillor?
Yeah, thank you. And just my last question on that one is, what reporting mechanism will be used to keep council updated on the implementation progress and performance indicators?
Thank you also for that question. Monitoring of the activities that are listed in the public health plan will be undertaken through the established strategic and organisational performance reporting framework. As the activities that are listed are cross-organisational, they're not one specific team that's implementing them. They're undertaken by a wide range of teams at the city. And so, where applicable, the separate activities and projects that are listed are or will be included in the corporate business plan, but will not specifically be reported as public health plan initiatives in that plan, so as to avoid duplication. We don't want to be reporting twice on the same thing, so ultimately it will but they will be there, reported on. Progress and review of the public health plan will be included also in the city's annual report, together with confirmation of the city's required reporting annually to the Department of Health.
Councillor?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation this evening. Just a couple of quick ones. The first one is in relation to the reviews. How will the reviews be held, specifically around public notification that the review is coming up, or consultation with the public?
Director or the manager? Yep.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of the way in which the review occurs, we haven't yet determined a detailed framework for that. Each year there is a review required. It's not intended that there would be significant changes annually to the plan, and in that sense there's no plans at this stage to have community consultation on something that might not materially change the plan, which will be, once endorsed, it will be published on our website for people to view. The opportunity for any significant review, which likely would include consultation, would be 5 yearly, and so in terms of that process, that would I would assume, and that would be intended to go through its own process of consultation and feedback, because a lot can happen in 5 years. So that's essentially the position at this stage, but we haven't clearly defined exactly how that would occur.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, upon approval of the public health plan, then, what's the anticipated city's timeline for developing the framework for reviews so that council and the residents of the city will be aware of it? And the second part to that, from the information you've just provided in the feedback there, is how was the determination made to only maybe go to public consultation once every 5 years instead of something a little bit closer together?
Goes to the manager again.
Just in terms of decisions to go to consultation, there haven't been any decisions around going once every 5 years or more frequent than that. The requirement for the city under the Public Health Act is that we undertake a review each year, but every 5 years, essentially, it's a major review. So the reason I made the distinguish between the two in terms of consultation is it's not envisaged at this stage that we would consult with the public annually. We would potentially consult with a major review. That's a decision that we would make closer to the time, I would imagine. But certainly there's no plans to consult annually. And there was another part to the question, my apologies. Are you able to repeat that?
Yes, just in relation to the framework, when the city anticipates the framework would be established, the timeline.
We haven't set a time at this stage. It's not envisaged that it would be a significant task to do that. So it's something that we could certainly develop in a fairly short time frame. There were no plans to present that to council, but the process of a review is a requirement. But as I said, it's not intended to be a major change to what we're presenting at this stage to council.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Another one, if I could. Who does the small yearly review? Who's responsible for that? And yeah, I guess that's the question.
So the city has responsibility to undertake that review. In developing the public health plan, we've involved pretty much all areas of the administration, and so we would need to determine what circumstances might have changed in conducting the review, and to determine who within the administration would need to be involved. And I guess as there are a number of activities that are listed that are across the organisation, some of those may be, for example, determined by council through the budgetary process, that those are not going ahead. So at that stage, we would need to remove those from the public health plan potentially, so that we're not reflecting projects that council made a decision to not proceed with through the budget process or other decisions of council. So ultimately, it's the city that has responsibility, and the administration would undertake that as an administrative task primarily.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moving on to something different there. In relation to the workshops, there was mentioned 3 workshops held. I'd just like to know, happy to take this part on notice if I could, but who were the attendees invited? Were they invited by the City of Joondalup specifically from a list, or were they of their own accord coming to a consultation? And the numbers of the people who attended these 3 workshops for this feedback on which it was developed from, if I could get that. Happy to take it on notice for specifics, but if we could get a
Goes to the manager.
brief.
Yep.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your question. In answer to your question about community groups, there was a a list that the city prepared in consultation with other teams within the city, and we invited as many groups or representatives from groups from a wide range of interests, including sporting groups, groups representing vulnerable people within the community, groups representing people with special needs. In terms of numbers, I know it was a significant number that was invited. I don't have, and I'll have to take on notice, the numbers that actually attended, but certainly we tried to have a broad representation of the community attend or invited to attend through those invitations.
Thank you,
Councillor.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'll wait for feedback on all that and the specifics, and then probably have a few follow-ups. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor May.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions on the actual report on page 15, page 14 and 15. The data is quite interesting. I'm just seeking some feedback on it because the amount of fast food, the amount of alcohol is higher for Joondalup versus the rest of the state, while physical activity is slightly lower, screen time's higher, yet obesity and overweight statistics are better than the rest of the state. So I'm just wondering, first of all, what can be taken from that data, or if it's in a margin of error.
Go to the manager.
Thank you for your question, Councillor May, through you, Mr. Mayor. I did observe that same observation that you've made. I think what we've been advised essentially is that where the City of Joondalup percentage is 3% higher or lower than the state average, then we can take that data as being meaningful and statistically significant. That's not to say it's not meaningful if it's just 1 or 2%, but it's the advice we've received is that is accurate, and we can rely upon that in comparison to WA. In terms of why specifically we seem to be eating more fast food or drinking more alcohol or having more screen time, and yet somehow we are less obese. There are, I guess, other factors that might determine those specific findings, and unfortunately I don't have an answer to that question that I can give you that would make it very clear as to why that's the case, but that data is reliable from the information that we have received from the Department of Health.
Councillor May.
Thank you. Just one last question. Just wanting clarification on what is classified as fast food, because obviously some fast food options, like someone may get a salad from McDonald's, for example, may not be considered unhealthy. But I'm just interested in there's a bit of grey area, because there's lots of different fast food outlets nowadays that aren't just your typical, stereotypical fast food.
Again, thank you for your question, through you, Mr. Mayor. We don't have a definition of what is considered fast food for the purposes of this report. In terms of the process and the information gathered, it was primarily from the Department of Health and their phone surveys to individuals. So those questions would be asked directly of the person that they are surveying. So I would assume they would simply ask them, do you eat fast food at least weekly? And it would be up to the individual to decide what the answer to that question would be.
Thank you. Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. I just had a couple of questions. The first one is the plan primarily a compliance requirement under state legislation, or is it intended to actively shape future programs or investment by the city?
Go to the manager.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Gould, through you, Mr Mayor. The public health plan was primarily developed in consideration of the legislative requirement within with implementation of Phase 5 of the Public Health Act. The city has the opportunity to impact on the health and well-being of our residents, and that's through a range of services and activities that more often than not are already provided by the city. And so we can positively impact the determinants of health. However, we do need to recognise that we are just one piece of that puzzle, and the state government has a responsibility as well. And so in terms of the public health plan itself, it lists many of the existing plan programs and activities identified through the city's corporate business plan and individual business unit plans that do have an influence on public health, often indirectly, but meeting the requirements of the Public Health Act was certainly a key driver for the city. We had to do it. We didn't have a say in that. However, the focus areas that have been mentioned, that have been identified, can certainly be a consideration when council is considering any future activities or proposals. Those key focus areas can be a relevant consideration for council to help guide the city in its decision making.
Councillor.
Thank you. If I may have another question. So how will council retain visibility and control or oversight over the scope and resourcing as the plan is implemented over time?
Thank you for your question, through you, Mr Mayor. Monitoring and reporting on the activities in the public health plan will be undertaken through the existing reporting framework. As I've mentioned, the activities are cross-organisational. They're undertaken by various teams within the city. Where applicable, the separate activities and projects are or will be included in the corporate business plan, but they won't be specifically reported as public health plan initiatives, so as to avoid duplication of reporting. Progress and review of the public health plan will be included in the city's annual report, together with confirmation that we have reported to the Department of Health as required. It doesn't provide, or the draft public health plan doesn't provide any commitment for additional funding that would not already be for consideration, as all projects and initiatives are identified already or planned through the city's corporate business plan or individual business unit plans. Ultimately, any new programs or activities associated with the public health plan would remain subject to council consideration through the annual budgeting process. So in terms of scope or increasing scope, it doesn't intend to do that. It's simply recognising that we do provide a range of services that influence public health, and ensuring that we consider those and how they can impact public health. And as mentioned previously, we'll review that annually and significantly every 5 years.
Councillor.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, so I guess just for my own personal clarity here and understanding, the plan then is intended like a framework and like a guide for future actions, because there's all these other bits that come in underneath it, isn't it? So there's all this overlap. Because I remember on the community reference group, we did sort of say, well, what are we already doing now? So you've kind of, that's how this document's come to be, isn't it? You've sort of pulled all that, what are we already doing already, and it sits there, and that's kind of, yeah. So there's nothing, I was just trying to figure out how it was going to function over time, but it's just something that sounds like it's just going to be there. Is that correct? Am I reading that right?
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. Primarily, yes, it is a framework. It captures our existing programs and activities. As this is the first of the city's public health plans, we have had fairly limited time, as I've mentioned previously, to pull it all together. It is a framework, though, for consideration of initiatives that council may consider in the future. We know that what our focus areas should be as a result of undertaking this exercise. And the key focus areas are something that can be considered when deciding in the future if somebody was to, or the administration was to put a proposal forward for a particular role or function of the city that we're not currently undertaking. It could be considered against those key goals or those key focus areas, and that would help the city determine whether or not that aligns with that and help in the decision making.
Councillor? Thank you. Any further questions? No, I just have a couple. My first one goes to the key focus area number 3, which is environmental health and resilience. And I saw in the ongoing programs it spoke about the midge monitoring at Lake Joondalup and Lake Joondalup and the work that we do there. So we don't manage that water body. That water body is managed by the state. And then on the other side of things, we have the beach grades where the city does the water quality testing. I'm just wondering why in this report for the ongoing programs and activities we chose not to include the beach water quality programs which we participate in.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Mayor. Primarily the water at Mullaloo Beach and other beaches, obviously Mullaloo's been a focus of attention, but its quality is primarily a state responsibility. The city does support that state-led monitoring through water sampling on behalf of state government agencies, including the Department of Health and DEWA. So in a sense, we are involved, although it's not our responsibility directly. In relation to midge monitoring at our lakes, Yellowgonga Regional Park, there's been a long-standing partnership agreement between the city and City of Wanneroo, whose residents are obviously on the other side of the lake, and also with DBCA. And so there is some shared responsibility there as well. I guess in terms of the water quality at our beaches, ultimately there are a number of government agencies that have different roles and functions to play, and so it is a little more complicated. However, it's not included there ultimately as the roles, and it's outside of the city's boundaries as well, the water itself. It's not within the city of Joondalup. And so ultimately it wasn't included as our role is just a supportive role rather than a responsible direct involvement role in the same way as it might be for the midge monitoring.
I guess follow on that, I'm just trying to get some clarity on this, because in my understanding, both water bodies are managed by the state. The recreational waters with the beach is the responsibility to the state. The Department of Health was responsible for the water quality management program. But then, say Lake Joondalup, for example, Lake Joondalup is also a water body managed by the state. The coordinating agency is DBCA. We're not responsible. We perform, again, a similar sort of facilitation role where we do test sometimes, I think, the water quality levels and then also the midge population. So we're not responsible, but we also perform a similar type of function, but with different agencies. So there's about 2 or 3 different agencies that are all involved with Lake Joondalup. And then I know with the beach water quality, there's DBCA, there's Department of Fisheries and the Department of Health as well. So I guess I'm trying to understand, they're both state government responsibilities. We perform a similar, I would say, a similar sort of assisting role. Again, we're not responsible. So I'm trying to understand why we didn't include something as important as the beach grade program in the list.
Yeah, thank you. In terms of the midge monitoring and the lakes, I'm not entirely familiar with the history, but I know that that came about as a council decision at least 25, 26 years ago. So our involvement is formalised in that sense. And in terms of the issues or the monitoring, the water quality monitoring, our role is simply limited really to sampling. We're not managing it or assisting in the management of it in the same way that the existing partnership agreement with the lakes includes our management of those issues. And so there was direct involvement in that sense by the city through this partnership agreement that's in place. But in relation to the beaches, it's not the city's responsibility to manage any issues that might arise. We'll take direction or advice from relevant agencies, but ultimately it's a state responsibility to manage, and there is no agreement with council for the city to manage those issues or respond to those issues. And ultimately the state in this case has investigated and engaged a consultant to prepare a report on those specific issues. It's not something that the city has directly been involved with in that regard.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking more broader than just the current contentions around what's happening at Mullu Beach, everything from the water quality testing in Hillary's Boat Harbour. So you said about, the differences with Yalagonga and Lake Joondalup. We have a partnership agreement. Do we not have an agreement with the state about what frequency of water quality testing we'll engage in, or any sort of memorandums of understanding? Because we usually engage in, I think, every 2 weeks during the summer. So do we not have any agreements in place? We just do it?
I would have to maybe take that question on notice. I'm not 100% sure. I know we do, from time to time, receive requests to undertake additional testing, but I'm not sure of the exact nature of the agreement in relation to that.
Sure. Thank you. And then moving on to, I think it was key focus area 1, mental health and wellbeing. So what we plan on doing, the Joondalup Performing Arts Centre. So it says here investigating the arts facility, and it says for the next 5 years we're just going to be investigating. So how is that linked, I guess, within those 5 years of trying to achieve one of the health priorities to align with the state governments? I guess I say that because it seems to be not feasible that we'll be delivering the actual Performing Arts Centre within that time. It would rely on, say, a large commitment at either the state or federal elections, which would obviously push that at the end of the time frame or out of that 5-year time frame of this report. So I guess I'm trying to understand something like that where we're just investigating behind the scenes. How does that materially change the health outcomes in the district?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree with you. It wouldn't materially change health outcomes in the district if the city's just investigating something of that nature. I guess any progress towards achieving opportunities for improved mental health and improved connection with the community is something that we also trying to recognise in the public health plan. So even progress towards something is recognition that we are aware of the need for opportunities to connect, opportunities for groups to have experiences that might improve their mental health. And so, yes, directly I would agree it's not directly influencing public health, but it's recognising that we have something that we are working towards that will ultimately have an influence on mental health.
Yep. And then I guess I'm trying to contrast this with other major projects that will be delivered within, say, the 5-year time frame. This major project's been included, others weren't. When other ones within the 5 years, say, could have a tangible outcome on the district. Say if you consider the increased recreational opportunities with the Burns Beach Node and Cafe. for something like that, or the significant redevelopment of Heathridge Park. I'm just trying to understand why we put in this major project and not others.
I might need to take that question on notice in terms of specific reasons for that. There was consultation with business unit managers throughout the city's administration, and we have sought to try and pull together those projects that would have an impact. It's possible there may be some there that are not included. I can't explain specifically the reasons relating to those projects. There's certainly no deliberate inclusion or exclusion for any other reason than perhaps the feedback may not have been received on those specific projects.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll see what the answer is. I guess I'm thinking things like if we change facilities, then have opportunities for women's sport with extra change rooms and things like that. But I'll see what's taken on notice. I guess just two other questions. The first one is that looking at all the programs on here, as Councillor Gould observed, that many of them are programs and activities that are already occurring or already scheduled to occur. Through this process, did you identify anything where the city should look at funding a particular activity more? Or was there anything where you identified when you looked at the strategy and if there were gaps that other programs should commence or be priorities?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, in terms of the way in which we've considered the initiatives and the projects, we've really just tried to ensure that we are capturing those projects that align with the key focus areas that are within the public health plan, identified through the public health plan. We haven't considered at this stage changes to those initiatives that have already been planned through the corporate business plan or elsewhere as a part of this exercise. That's something that certainly could be considered in the future through any review, but as part of this exercise, we're conscious of the need to keep a fairly tight scope and ensure that we essentially produce this plan as our first public health plan within the time frame.
That's all right, thank you. And then the last question is just the range of public health concerns that the public at large in Joondalup has around the district. And although the city may not be responsible, but performs a key role in advocating around them. So things such as the Tamala Park tip odour and seeking the closure of the landfill and the city's advocacy leading towards that. For a lot of residents in the north, that is their main public health concern. For people in Craigie Belden, some of their main public health concerns is around the Beanyup wastewater treatment plant and the periodic odours that are released from the site, and of course then concerns around beach grades, where the city, of course, again, isn't responsible for the water quality, but performs a function in trying to advocate and engage in water testing. So I guess if you ask the community about what are the main concerns in public health besides, say, concerns on individual lots, so individual businesses, they would say those are probably their three biggest ones. So how is this plan capturing that or advocating for those three outcomes to be resolved or better managed by those agencies?
Thank you for the question. In terms of where there are issues that are managed or governed by other bodies, the plan doesn't directly include any proposal for advocacy in that regard. We are limited in many respects by the expertise that we have at the city and amongst our staff. And in those instances where those issues are managed or the state has the responsibility to manage those issues, we are guided by the expertise that they have within those agencies, and unless we had a body of knowledge or information that led us to have a different position to the state position, then there hasn't been any, and there wouldn't be any proposal to advocate a different position. Obviously, if the city chose to spend money on getting its own consultants to provide a different opinion, that would be up to council if that's what was chosen. However, based on the knowledge and the information we have and the expertise that's at those agencies, we don't have any alternative supporting information to advocate for a different position.
That's right. Thank you. I'll probably follow up just with some questions as well. Thank you. I think we've probably exhausted questions on this, so we'll move to the next item on tonight's agenda. So item 12.4, there were no questions sought on that, being a confidential item. Item 12.5, status of council decisions. Any questions? No, thank you. Item 12.6, minutes of regional council meetings. I do just have one question, probably for the temporary CEO. The inclusion of the most recent minutes of the Mindarie Regional Council, I think on the 30th of April. So I think we included the special meeting on the 16th. So is that going to then go to the next council meeting?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Count.
Yes, thank you. Just in regard to the Catalina Regional Council, I noticed there's a carving up of some property to be allocated to the cities itself as opposed to remaining in the Catalina Council. Is that a regular occurrence or is this a one-off? Thanks.
I think we'll take the question now because you've asked it on this item, but there's an item on 12.14 on the agenda which deals with that.
You're quite correct. That's
yep.
where I would have asked it. You're right.
That's right. Thank you, Councillor. We'll then move to item 12.7, annual review of delegated authority. Any questions on this item? Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No real specific questions, just flagging my intention for an alternate on the evening.
Thank you. Any further questions on the delegations? No, I have a couple for the planning delegations that are proposed to change. I saw the explanation in the first attachment, but it didn't really cover what's being sought or why. So I guess to go through some of them individually, first starting with the changes to delegation, for anyone else who's following on, this is on page 200. So on delegation 1A, Roman numeral 3, striking out all the section for senior urban planners. So before there was the limitation that they could only determine applications of bushfire attack levels less than 40. Now it's sort of moving to an unrestricted ability to approve developments of that sort. I guess my question is, could I understand why that particular choice is being made? Director?
Thank you for the question. I think the reason for the change is in terms of efficiency. Normally that would have to go to the manager for approval, and this is allowing the senior planners or the coordinators to process it.
I guess my concern goes to it's balancing up efficiency and risk. So this is allowing the senior urban planners to be determining, so that's the lower level of planners which have delegated authority, giving them the ability to determine high bushfire risk zone, determine planning applications in relation to properties in high bushfire risk areas. I guess I'm trying to understand, is that an appropriate level for that decision to be made or not? Because previously we've had that at the coordinator level and above. So at the manager for planning services or the manager for regulatory services and above. And I'm thinking is that if you have a site which is a high bushfire risk, say whether it's next to the regional park or one of the coastal reserves or one of the other natural area reserves in Joondalup, is that an appropriate level to then have the lowest level of?
Thank you for the question. It's considered that development applications with that bushfire risk are referred to a bushfire expert, and they have a bushfire management plan, and it was considered that that level of senior planner do have adequate experience to assess those applications.
And then moving to the changes proposed for Delegation 1A, Roman numeral 5D. So this is changing to the boundaries and the walls, boundary walls. So again, before it was limited, now it's opening that up. So it's allowing then again planners of a lower level to deal with an application which is more complex in its involvement, considering all the boundary wall issues that can occur.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, boundary walls is, for a planner, a qualified planner, not that complicated. It's more of a planning officer type of development application and not a senior or a coordinator. So for a senior or a coordinator to review the assessment is adequate, they would have enough experience to review that assessment for a boundary wall.
Yeah. I guess some of the boundary walls are often contentious, so it can be more straightforward at times to approve, but it can lead to quite contentious outcomes. I guess we'll move on then to one of the other delegations, so Delegation 1B, which is adding the words and or objectives. So before the requirement, which is that the lower level planners could make decisions to applicable standards and requirements, but not to objectives. So now it's saying and or objectives, which does seem to widen the scope of what can be decided.
Yeah, thanks for the questions. That is in relation to when it's not a deemed to comply assessment, which is straightforward, measuring against the deemed to comply requirements. That's when a discretionary decision is made against the objectives of either the policy or the R codes. And again, it's a planning officer level requirement to assess something in that regard. And I think it's adequate that a principal or a coordinator or a senior planner can review that and ultimately pick up if anything is out of order. Currently, that would now have to go through to the manager for assessment. So if you think of, I suppose, the sheer volume of development applications that come in that require a discretionary decision against the objectives, that's quite a lot. And in terms of efficiency and getting development applications out within their statutory time frame, this just makes it more efficient. And there still is a review by the senior planner and the coordinator. And if there is anything contentious about a particular application, it would normally be discussed with the manager anyway, but this is to allow the straightforward applications to go through.
I guess I question this one is that because before it was just the standards and requirements, adding objectives allows to be assessed against the objectives, as you're well aware, which is when the discretions come in from what would ordinarily be permitted, which is, again, the contentious elements for our community about are things being built to what they expect would be a suitable development under the design codes in that particular area. So I guess my question then also goes on to, I'll follow on that when I get to the point 2, but also on 1D. So the reference to the deemed provisions, I presume incorrect here, that it's clause 65A that's being referred to, not 65. I'm wondering if we can check that as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, yeah.
If we can just take that on notice and check it, that I'm pretty sure it's 65A, which is about further information being requested. Then moving on to Delegation 2. So Delegation 2C. So changing the maximum number of objections raised, so relevant planning considerations, from 6 to 10, and then at the same time striking out the wording which requires the development to satisfy any applicable standards or requirements. So I guess it seems before that the principal urban planners previously used to determine, used to have the power to approve when to put it simply, the development application wasn't particularly contentious. It met the standards, met the requirements, but there may have been a number of relevant planning objections. This would give quite a large change from that, where there would be both an increase in the number of relevant planning considerations from 6 to 10, so nearly doubling, and then at the same time being able to determine applications which don't satisfy the applicable standards as well. So again, being able to exercise a wide range of discretions. So could I just sort of understand the rationale on that?
Again, it was in terms of efficiency, and sometimes the number of objections increasing. So if the objections increase, it doesn't necessarily bring more issues. Quite often, the objections all relate to the one issue. You might have a few, so the actual number of objections doesn't really make any difference in terms of the issues raised. Yeah, and I think it was quite often we get pro forma objections, so it's just a letter that's been distributed or an email through like a standard objection that people have signed, and that's why you end up getting more for a development.
I guess in those cases it's looking at ones that are raising relevant ones, so I guess it's not so much just about the volume that's being raised with standard letters. I guess I'm trying to see is that what risk are we taking on by making these changes? We're giving quite a change in scope of the discretions which can be approved through delegated authority at the lower levels for the planning officers. So I guess I'm trying to, you speak about efficiency, but do you acknowledge or the risk that also is balanced up in that, or?
Yeah, I acknowledge the risk that's balanced up in that, but each development application will be reviewed by a senior planner or a coordinator before it goes out the door. So it will be picked up. In my opinion, the coordinators and the principal planners we've got currently have adequate experience, more than adequate experience to go through this.
When you say reviewed by a senior planner or the coordinator, is that a different senior planner and a different coordinator?
Yes, so quite often some of these development applications will be assessed by a planning officer, and then they'll go through to a senior planner and then through to a coordinator. What this change in delegation is, I suppose, preventing it to then go to the manager. So this is seeking, I suppose, a delegation that a senior planner with more experience than the planning officer who's assessed it will check and review it before it's issued.
Yeah. So I guess I'm just sort of, I'll probably try and follow up with some of these questions as well. So when, I guess I'm raising concerns around this in, you say that it was then referred to be reviewed by a senior planner or the coordinator. In these cases, it is the senior planner or coordinator giving the approvals under these delegations. So that's why I sort of asked, is it a different one?
The planning officer would make the recommendations. Planning officer would assess the application, write up the report, and it would go through a hierarchy, generally to a senior planner and then to the coordinator. Currently, these delegations that we're proposing for change then go up to the manager.
I see.
Also for review. So it's cutting out one person, I suppose.
And then delegation 2D. So this is a use that's listed by X under the relevant zone. I presume in most cases, if you put an application against for a parcel of land and it's zoned X, if it's non-conforming, you would just refuse the application. So I presume that it's a fairly simple process at the moment. I guess I'm trying to capture the alternate case where something is listed as X, but at the same time you can then have a non-conforming use. So somebody has a continuing use on the site from a previous zoning under the scheme. So is this now giving the principal urban planners the ability to approve those in those cases?
I think it's giving them the ability to refuse if it's an X use.
Because it could also be the ability to approve a non-conforming use. Because he just talks about the application may be able to be determined
Yeah, I
a
see
use
that.
that's X.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess it's simple. I can understand a lower down planning official being able to determine an application which is in an X usage and it's non-conforming, and that's the end of it. And it's a new sort of usage that's non-conforming they're seeking. But if you had an existing use that was then, when the scheme was modified, is that then an appropriate level for a principal urban planner to be making a decision on? I guess is my question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand your concerns. Yeah.
Right. I'll probably follow up with some of these as well. Any further questions on the delegations? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question page 146, please, under extension of existing contracts. Just seeking clarity as to only the CEO can extend those contracts, and it can only be sub-delegated if the CEO had some form of conflict of interest.
Thank you. I'll go to Director of Corporate Services. Thank you.
Responding through you, Mayor, yes, that's correct. The current provisions are that the contract performance will be assessed by the contract manager. That will then proceed through the purchasing team and to myself to make a recommendation to the CEO on whether or not a contract should be extended. And it's only the CEO.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So there's a central register those contracts are maintained on, so we know when those dates are coming up.
Through Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. The report is provided on a quarterly basis to the ELT to ensure that we don't miss any. Unfortunately, from time to time, though, one or two will get through, but more than 95% are renewed within time.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So this document's public, so any contracting party to the city would be legally, I suppose, educated as to the process of who has authority.
Director.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to have that question on notice. The tender register itself, which contains the initial contract and the options, is publicly available. Whether the contract extensions themselves are publicly available, I'll take on notice and provide a detailed answer in the packs.
Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Any further questions on this item? Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to item 12.8, where there is a presentation. Director Parry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and councillors, the purpose of this report is to consider options with regard to the appointment of an independent person or persons to perform the functions of the council under clauses 12 and 13 of the Code of Conduct for the purpose of dealing with or dismissing a complaint and making a finding in relation to an alleged breach. We have, as a result of the March meeting, explored 4 options with regard to appointment of an independent person who would be authorised to perform that particular function. So option 1 relates to council as the final decision maker. In accordance with its decision of March, council is currently the final decision maker with regard to any alleged breach complaints received relating to behavioural breach complaints. The council could choose to keep the status quo and remain as the final decision maker. Option 2 was the appointment of a monitor, which we thought in discussion with the Local Government Inspector's Office, we may be able to engage them. However, they've advised that that's not possible to request a monitor to deal with Code of Conduct behavioural breach matters because the appointment of a monitor is inconsistent with the requirements in relation to 14b(3) of the Model Code of Conduct regulations. So we're unable to pursue that particular option. Option 3 is the investigator as the final decision maker. So council has authorised the contractors listed under the Common Use Agreement for the purpose of investigating alleged breaches. There is the option to have the same person who is investigating the alleged complaint to also be the final decision maker. That option isn't supported by the administration because it's considered it would undermine those fundamental principles of good governance and procedural fairness with regard to separation of roles. In other words, as we've put within the report, the person who gathers and then tests the evidence should not be the judge of their own work. Option 4 relates to the appointment of an independent person, and the council has the option of undertaking a direct appointment through invitation of a suitably qualified independent person, if it is aware of one, or an expression of interest being undertaken from a select group of nominees or the general public to appoint to that role of independent person. It is suggested that only one person be appointed as the independent person rather than a panel. The only issue that might arise as a result of that, which is remote, because they would have to declare interests or conflicts of interest in their application, is if that independent person potentially had a conflict of interest, and then the decision would then fall on the council to decide on the matter. I think if we were to appoint an independent person, that would be quite a remote possibility. A single decision maker rather than a panel would ensure that there is unambiguous accountability for the final outcome. So when responsibility is shared, if you were to have a panel of independent people to look at those behavioural breaches, it would become difficult to be able to clearly identify who exercised the judgment, who approved the decision, and who's accountable for the decision if it's challenged. The panel option or appointment of a deputy who may never actually receive a complaint to decide on are options for the council to consider. That is, I guess, the preferred option, and a draft EOI form is attached for council's consideration if that option is preferred. The council should also give consideration as to whether to remunerate the independent person or persons. There's no requirement for a fee to be paid to the independent person, but it would be considered appropriate to compensate a person for the work undertaken in reviewing an investigator's report and making a finding, as well as endorsing any recommendations for action. There may be some other follow-up as well. So it's suggested that the council give consideration to either an hourly rate or, in accordance with the Salaries and Allowances Tribunal, $466 per decision might be an appropriate fee. So I'm pleased to take any questions on the matter.
Thank you, Director. Any questions on this item? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So, seeking clarification, option 4, the independent is purely investigation. The final decision still remains with the council to ratify.
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, no, we would appoint through the common use agreement an investigator to undertake the investigation, and that's where option 3 is the investigator as the final decision maker. This is about the council not having to meet to discuss the findings of the investigation. So similar to what was done under the old provisions of the model code, the investigator reported through with recommendations to the CEO, and the CEO implemented those decisions. So that delegation was given to the CEO. The changes in the model code of conduct now prohibit the CEO from being that particular person. So the responsibility falls on the council unless the council identifies a particular person to be responsible for it.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Hill.
Yes, thank you. If I understand correctly, the officers have a preference for option 4, I think I just heard. Could I just check with regard to option 1, if there was a specific complaint by one elected member about another elected member, does that mean that council would determine that, and is that considered appropriate by governance? Or does it introduce any difficulties, can I say? Thank you.
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, thank you for the question. The model code of conduct changes now require the council to be the final decision maker. In March, the council decided that it did not want the council to be the final decision maker and to look at options for identifying, or its preferred approach was to look at an independent person to be able to undertake that role. So option 1, we've just put it there if the council wanted to refer back to or defer to the provisions of the model code. However, I don't think that's the intent of the March meeting, to look at independent persons. So that remains there as an option, but it's not one that the council has indicated a preference for.
Councillor Hill.
Yep, just thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a quick question, perhaps for governance on this one. In relation to if option 4 is decided to go with, is there the possibility of the individual to remain anonymous, and if so, how would that be undertaken?
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I need some clarification. The individual to remain anonymous, are you talking about the complainant and the complaint?
No, the implementer of the punishment, so to speak. Is it possible for that person to be, and this is obviously just me thinking about, you know, the anonymity of that person, so that they are themselves protected from possible repercussions themselves.
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's not something I've considered. The council will need to appoint that independent person. They will probably appear on the list of payments, so trying to protect their identity would be rather difficult. You're only dealing with behavioural breaches of elected members as well, so they're relatively minor. So I can't see that there is a significant risk in that person's identity being known. Complainants from, you will have members of the public as well who are making complaints that will go through an investigator. There may be a requirement for the independent person to actually get in contact with the complainant or the elected member against whom the complaint is made, and it'd probably be better that the council endorse that person's name, so that any complainant, whether that be an elected member or a member of the public, was aware that that person was legitimately appointed.
Any final questions on this? Thank you. I'll be proposing an alternate, given I think there's a fair amount of agreement on this, for option 4, and then also setting the rate at the CEO recruitment panel equivalent rates of 466. Moving then to item 12.9, the corporate business plan. Any questions on this item? Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just like to request that on the evening the items are voted separately, if I could ask that. Then just going back to, I did want to ask a question in relation to item 12 on this list. I wanted to ask the question of the city that with this, the library strategy, if council disagreed with the recommendation of the city officers not to delay this, is it possible for the city to complete this work and implement it within the time frame required?
Thank you. There is just 1 month left of Q4, so Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll have to take that on notice and dig a bit deeper to see what the delay is, and I'll get back to you with the information.
I think the temporary CEO has got an additional comment as well.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Given that we've got 1 month left in quarter 4, the proposal from the managers that came through is that looked at the areas where they cannot deliver that. So that is the reason why the milestone is proposed to be changed, as they've looked at the resources and the requirements and they cannot achieve that. Happy for the director to take it on notice, but that's just a partial response to that question. Councillor O'Neill.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just look, in relation to that, I'd just like to know, perhaps, and I can take this on notice as well, as to an explanation as to, being that this is coming now to council within only a month left, and the request to move that milestone time frame, how it was not foreseen earlier on than this, and something was maybe implemented that could have picked up the slack, so to speak. I'd just like to know how the workings of that work, and how it ended up that now we're being asked to move the date of something that I don't see it should be necessary. But anyway, happy to take that on notice with an explanation later.
Thank you, Councillor. Director, is that all right? Yep. Thank you. Anything further, Councillor O'Neill? No, that's all right. Councillor Hill.
Yes, thanks. Noting the first question about voting on the matters separately, there are 15 different items, and just for expedience on the night, I wonder whether it might be more appropriate for elected members to determine which specific ones they would like to be separated out for vote on separately, rather than do 15 items one by one, if that's possible. Thank you.
I think I'll ask Councillor O'Neill right now. Councillor O'Neill, is there any set ones out of the 15 you'd like voted on separately?
Happy to maybe provide a list to you in a couple of days once I've finished going through a couple of other things and get some information back in relation to my questions this evening.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hill? No? I just have a short question on the same topic as Councillor O'Neill's about timing. If the council does agree to changing the milestone on the libraries, it was suggested by the presenter to set a date in which the draft strategy could be presented to council. Tonight, is it possible to provide what an indicative date could be, or could I get an alternate put on notice with a date or a quarter when it can be definitely presented to council?
Answer the question, yes. I'll take that on notice and have a look at the resource and when we can deliver that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll be seeking just an alternate for that. Councillor May.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question around point 12. This isn't the first time the library strategy has been delayed. What are the reasons for the continued need to amend the milestones on this item?
Go to the manager. Sorry, the director. Sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I understand it's a resource issue, but it predates me starting with the city, so I'll have to look into it and take it on notice.
Councillor.
Thank you. I was also going to foreshadow an alternate to point 12 along the lines of request for library strategy and a corporate business plan be finalised and presented to council at or before the September ordinary council meeting.
Thank you. I'm sure it'll probably be the same sort of wording, Q1. Yeah. Any further? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 358, in terms of the Ocean Reef Marina development opportunities, comment about following consultation with DEV WA, the opportunity to develop the city's freehold lot has been placed on hold while they progress exclusive working period with the town centre master developer. That's been pretty much every quarter. Do we have an update? Is there progress? And what damage or costs is this having on the city's long-term financial strategy?
Director Humphrey.
Through Mr. Mayor, my understanding is it's been about 18 months since we were expecting to be notified of when the first stage or master developer would be in place. As yet, the city hasn't been notified. With regards to the second part of the question, I don't think it would be having any material impact overall on the city's costs, as other parts of infrastructure which would normally hand over to the city have also been delayed. However, the city is preparing an updated life cycle cost for the Ocean Reef Marina. I'm happy to take that question on notice and include that in that analysis.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
In terms of slowing the development of commercial aspects of the marina, would that not impact potential rates revenues from those commercial buildings? What length of time is going to have those rates, that income pushed back?
Director.
Through Mr. Mayor, I would expect that it would be between 2 to 3 years where we would have originally budgeted for some rates income to come through the business case, that we probably will now see that reduced. However, I would also add that the original estimates for that rates income were quite conservative. They were within the expected range, not the highest range that could be achieved. And we've seen increases in valuations since then. So I can't give an exact figure. I'm happy to take the question on notice, but I don't believe it would be as large an impact if the other aspects of the marina are handing over to the city on time. Those delays are pretty much offsetting it.
Oh, the temporary CEO has an additional comment.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I think in addition to what the Director of Corporate Services indicated, the delay in the master developer has also seen a delay in the subdivision, so the handover to the city in terms of our responsibility to look after and maintain the assets has impacted as well. So as the director has indicated, we have asked the senior financial analyst to look at that and how that impact will be, but also our expenditure has been delayed as well. So it's on both sides of the ledger.
Deputy Mayor.
So, looking back on the business case that was presented, we're actually better off then, are we? Because we were getting more expense than revenue.
Mr. Tempriccio, or
I'll provide a response, but perhaps the Director Corpus is going to... We can't say that at this stage, Mr. Deputy Mayor. What we're stating is that although the income has been delayed, the expenditure is also delayed, and we will have to do an assessment to determine the overall impact.
If the Director wishes to add?
No, only to support the temporary CEO's comments through Mr. Mayor. It would be a marginal amount, and until we've done the analysis, we really can't say whether it would be marginally better off or marginally worse off, but it would only be a small amount.
Yep. Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. On page 360, in terms of the tenure arrangements, the Ocean Reef Sea Sports Club, are we able to be provided the detail of that finalised lease and also the details of the loan arrangement in place to fund the building?
Director?
Through Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to take a question on notice and provide the details in the packs.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor? That's all. Thank you. Any further questions? I just have one or two back on the library strategy question. The community strategy as well, which is also going to be reviewed. Sorry, I'm just trying to get it back up on my laptop. The community development strategy, where the milestone was to review and revise the project plan for the community development strategy 26 to 2030. And then the library strategy was also to review and revise the project plan. The presenter had some concerns tonight about the amalgamation or the combination of these two strategies. Is that being contemplated at the moment?
Thank you for the question. No, it's not being considered to amalgamate both plans.
Okay. Thank you. And then just on the proposed amendments, generally on this, the report reads, this is the officer's report, reads generally that it's just proposing to move the different milestones. Is it possible in future updates that we can get more of an understanding of what is the cause of the moving of some of these milestones? Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. Like the library strategy is a good example of this. It wasn't clear in the explanation, which is on page 65, saying that it was a resourcing issue. Is that something we can try and get updates on? Mr. Tempriccio?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and responding to you, yes, we'll take that comment on board and see what information we can provide in the future on that. I don't know if Director Governance got something to add. No, that's all good. Thanks, man.
Yeah, if we could just have some clarity, as it just looks like we're moving milestones, but it's not clear what's going on. I think we can probably move to item 1210, Corporate Sponsorship Programme. Any questions on this item? Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Mayor. In relation to the proposed $7,000 sponsorship allocation to North Shore Community Hub Incorporated, can the City advise whether attendance data is available to demonstrate how many attendees at the event were broader community members as opposed to existing members of the North Shore Community Hub, particularly given that the corporate sponsorship program intends to deliver wider community benefit? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for the question. We assess all of the applications using a criteria-based approach that's really focused on delivering both those community and city benefits. And in this particular instance, the application indicated a total of 1,500 attendees in total across 3 events, with approximately 40 to 60% of those expected to be members of the North Shore Community Hub and more than 80% attending from the local area. What is important to note with regard to this sponsorship, which isn't in the report, is that we included a condition requiring all tickets to be released to the general public at the same time and on the same terms. So in other words, there's no exclusive or early access ticket pre-sale for North Shore Community Hub members, and that ensures open access to all members of the community and supports the objectives of the corporate sponsorship program in relation to exclusivity to members, which is on page 5 of the guidelines for sponsorship applicants.
Councillor,
Thank you very much.
any further questions on this item? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just seeking that copies of the applications for all those under $10,000 that were approved be provided as part of the information pack this week, please.
Director.
Through Mr Mayor, yes, I'm happy to provide those. Would you like the assessments as well? Or just the applications?
Have the assessments too, please, yeah. Okay.
We'll provide both.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. How does the city assess accessibility in practice? For example, where events may involve ticketing, limited capacity, or are held in private venues to ensure they align with the program's intent of broad community benefit?
Director.
Through Mr Mayor, thank you very much for the question. We rely upon the organisation submitting the application to respond to the criteria that's set by the council and within those guidelines, and we assess the application against the eligibility criteria. And I think the requirements for the revised sponsorship application are quite rigorous that an applicant has to go through to address, and it allows us with a lot more of an objective ability to be able to assess those. We do also rely on acquittal reports from the sponsor applicants to demonstrate meeting the agreement requirements as well. So meeting those criteria is considered each time a new application is received, and the ability to be able to undertake that acquittal. We don't have the resources to be able to check the validity of whether every criteria was met, particularly in relation to attendances for such small community events. But with regard to ticketing, capacity, and where the venues are, that is all within their applications, and that is one reason with regard to North Shore Country Club, for example, we placed that condition on the sponsorship to ensure that there was equitable access to all members of the community.
Councillor?
Yes, I have another one if I may. Thank you. So given the importance of ensuring clear community benefit and consistency in assessment, can the city outline how and when the corporate sponsorship program policy is scheduled for review and how council can contribute to that process?
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the revised policy went through, I think, probably about 2 years of development and was endorsed by the council in November of 2024. It only commenced in its new form from 1st of July last year, so it's only been in place for 9 or so months. So I think it's working quite well at the moment, but a review of a policy can occur at any time, and that's at the council's discretion. So if it wishes to revise the policy, that can be forwarded through a motion, I guess, to place it back on the policy committee's agenda, given it's only recently been on there.
Councillor? Councillor Hutton.
Yeah, thank you. Just particularly in point 4, obviously taking on board what the director's just said about the policy being reviewed, would I be able to request some alternate wording be drafted to review, for the policy committee to review the $10,000 limit on approvals done by the CEO, effectively in line with the review that's happening on the budget for this item?
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'm quite happy to give up that authority and allow the council to make all decisions on sponsorship. So yes, we can take that, we can put together an alternate recommendation for the policy committee to consider that review.
Councillor Hutton. Councillor May.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a question around why the delegation was put in there in the first place. Is there a risk that if council determines who gets what and how much and whatnot, that there may be biases? And I mean, there's an argument there is biases anyway, but I'm just concerned about the risk. And the second question is, how much is spent on average on this, and is there a rationale that the program just ceases, you know, is withdrawn altogether?
Thank you, Councillor. Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think the risk is low with council considering all sponsorships. Obviously, you will all have ties to members of the community, and declarations of interest would be made accordingly. They usually are during these sponsorship applications. There's at least one or two elected members who might have a relationship with a body making an application. So I don't consider that to be a risk at all. With regard to the funding, it's currently at around $230,000 a year for funding for the sponsorship, and the elected members agreed to reduce that particular budget. But I think sponsorship is really important because it supports community activities and programs and contributions, rather than the city having to undertake those activities itself, and really promotes and encourages our community groups to put on events that we can support. So I do see there being great value in having a sponsorship program, but as mentioned, it is at the council's discretion as to whether to have this particular policy, whether to have the program, and the amount of funding that goes towards it.
Thank you. And Councillor, I'll just add an observation, I think, from, I think it was quite a sensible comment when we were discussing, I think, the previous program, and I think it was Director Humphrey that said it. It was quite a helpful comment that if we don't have a program or a policy to regulate some of these requests for funding, that could come through petitions or councillors putting up notice of motion. By having a policy, we have a sensible, regulated way of dealing with some of these requests. So I thought that was quite a helpful comment that might, help you in your consideration with this as well. Councillor May.
Thank you. I agree. Just one final question for you to the relevant director. Is it possible to have just a very brief summary provided to me before the council meeting on what neighbouring local governments, so Stirling, Wanneroo and Swan, do in this space, what the level of delegation is, and how their policy compares to ours, just to assist in decision making in 2 weeks' time? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I believe all of those policies were probably provided to the policy committee as a comparison when we were reviewing the policy itself. So that information is available on all local government websites with regard to their sponsorship programs. So that is relatively easy for us to be able to provide and forward to elected members prior to the council meeting.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Gould.
Thank you. Yes, I just had another question, and maybe this is something I can that can be given on notice. It was just about the policy and how that aligns with clubs that have an income stream, because I know that there is quite a discomfort within the community with regard to what's perceived as a private members club receiving sponsorship money for what is essentially a festivity, a party, for a better word. So is there a policy about whether you can apply for sponsorships if you have an income stream? Does that make sense?
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question. There's not a specific clause in the policy that does exclude us from working with clubs that have an income stream. I think that would probably rule out a lot of your community groups and your sporting clubs and your other people that perhaps the council would still be interested in receiving a sponsorship from, so we have to be very careful. What we do and how we've got round that though, and absolutely taking your point that you'd like to see good checks and balances across this program, is that we worked with the council on the different criteria that people need to meet, and we've agreed those criteria. Then what we ask for is we set really tangible, stringent requirements for each different category of how much funding you're applying for, and then we measure people against that to make sure that council's getting value for money. And I think that's what we need to check off really is this event delivering to the community what council have set for us in their objective through the policy? And if that's the case, then it's given the weighted score. It will be given a weighted score higher. And if it performs less well, it will be further down the list. And then based off the number of applications that we receive from different community members, we put a red line through where we've got enough money in the pot and where we don't. And that will change year on year depending on the budget that council have given us to meet that objective. Specifically with the ticketing, I think it's really important to note that this is the first year of the program. So being in our first year, the first time we've run this and we're learning lessons every day, one of the lessons that we picked up pretty early on is that actually there could be some improvements made to the guidelines to make sure that we're asking all of the people who apply for sponsorship to give equal access to the community. So that was a learning for us. We've made the change to the guidelines and we're absolutely committed to doing that and learning lessons as we go forward. So if councillors have opportunities for us to improve, we really want to hear that and we're committed to making those changes.
Councillor? That's right. Any further questions? No, I just have a few. The first one, on a similar topic, I think the Deputy Mayor requested the applications. Could we get the acquittals for if in this round there's a group which has received funding in the previous round, if that's possible?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll have a look at the ability to be able to provide those acquittals because there may be some commercial information in them. We'll just need to review those, but what we can make available, we will.
Yeah, I guess the one which is standing out to, which, yeah, there's been a fair amount of commentaries around North Shore Community Hub Incorporated, so if we could just get the acquittals for that one there, I think that might be preferable. As far as the commercial elements in it, I think when the applications were put in, there was a business case which had a profit and loss, so I'm not sure really there'd be much difference as far as there being extra commercial information to provide. There was a comment earlier about provisions of the policy being applied retrospectively or not. I'm just wondering, in the policy and the guidelines, where does it say that the 3-year rule will not be applied retrospectively?
Mr. Mayor, it doesn't say that wouldn't be applied retrospectively. However, the policy committee and the council didn't give a direction that it would be applied retrospectively, and in most instances where you develop a policy or a new condition or a new criteria, you would implement it from the date in which it was adopted. So if the council would like to implement that criteria retrospectively and provide that intent to us, then we can apply it with a notation, I guess, from the council that it would like all applicants who have been considered at least 3 times in the past, that their application would go through to the council. If there is a review of the policy which withdraws the amount of funding that the CEO would be delegated to approve, all of those applications will come through to the council in any case.
Thank you. I will try and seek somewhere where we can have the retrospective provision added. Otherwise, if every 5 years we review this, the 3-year rule is not really going to be very effective in practice. As far as acquittals, there's the requirement as far as the financial aspect of acquittals under this policy. As far as acquittals for the benefits that the city is required to achieve, so there's the requirements under the policy for particular things to occur. Is that included in the acquittals, that they do perform all of those tasks and provide evidence for them?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, for your question. When we provide you with the assessments, you'll see a similar format for the under $10,000 that you see for the over $10,000. And in that, there is a column that says what the requirements are. So it will say, suitable number of advertising or promotional channels. And the one I've got in front of it says number for the category, and you need 9 promotional channels to be able to meet that requirement. So in that pack that we provide you, you'll have all the different requirements. In the actual acquittals, that's up to the individual applicant how they supply that information. So some of them will write us a report, and that will have attachments, and they might provide you with copies of their posters or social media posts or their reach. And so there's a number of different ways, because people deliver an event in different ways, that they might deliver that information to us. So we see that variety, but then we are then using that information to make our own judgment as to whether those milestone payments should be given based on what our requirements are and what the acquittal information is that reaches us.
Okay, so they're required to report in the acquittals all the requirements. So say if there's a requirement for 4 signs, they need to show in the acquittal 4 signs.
Yeah,
is that
absolutely.
correct?
And we are asking them to provide copies of that information as well, so we can gather as much evidence as possible. And that can be anything from photographs to photographs of signs to surveys of audience participation.
I see, and so that goes for all of them, so including opportunity for city representatives to speak, verbal acknowledgements on site. Those are all in the acquittal?
I think it's important to look at the core requirements in the guidelines, because there are different. I think one of the things that we need to balance is making sure that we don't overburden someone that's come to us for a small amount of money and who may be purely volunteer-led with having to do the same paperwork as if you're a much bigger organisation that has the resources to be able to provide a more detailed report. So in the Corporate Sponsorship Guidelines 25-26, which you have in your pack, what you'll see is the different governance requirements that are required based on the sponsorship amount that you have. And we provide that both on our website and also in the pack so that you can see. So for example, looking at the number of attendees and participant surveys conducted, if you're asking for up to $5,000, that's information we just require from the applicant. If you are somebody seeking, for example, $35,000 to $50,000 from us, we require that to be done by an external organisation and that proof from the external organisation to be given to us. So different levels of checks depending on how much money people are asking us for.
I see, so it should be in the acquittal pack though?
It will, yeah,
generally.
for different packs it will be.
Yeah, okay. I'll wait to see the acquittals for the North Shore. As far as, has the agreements for these, for the items which have been approved under delegation, have those agreements been signed with the city at this point?
Mr Mayor, no, not at this point.
Okay. Could the council determine not to provide that funding by council motion if those agreements have not been signed? Or could vary the amount, say give a higher or lower or add extra conditions?
Mr Mayor, the council has given approval to the CEO to approve those particular applications. These now appear in a public document. Some of the applicants have been spoken to with regard to their sponsorship funds, particularly North Shore, and because we applied a special condition on them. It would be, I don't know. You may revoke that decision from the CEO if you like, but there may be some implications in relation to that.
Consequences, of course. Just on the application for North Shore provided under delegation, it was assumed that the attendance would be 40 to 60% non-members. Did I hear that correctly? Or 40 to 60% members?
Mr Mayor, that was members.
Okay. And does the city do any validity checks on these numbers before we give approvals? Because I know last time there was the carols and the application pack said that within 1 week of the pre-release tickets being provided to members, the pre-release tickets for members, 80% of the tickets were sold in 1 week, and there was still another, I think, 1 or 2 weeks before the tickets even went on sale to the public.
Mr Mayor, thank you for your questions. I think it's important to note that was under the old guidelines and this is a new program. And as I've said, we're striving to make sure that we put as many checks and balances in as we can. As the Director for Strategy and Governance has outlined, that happens in a 3-stage process. So immediately in their application, if an organisation, when they submit their application, we ask them what they're able to do, says that they're not going to give us what we require, they'll automatically be scaled back in terms of the amount that they've asked for proportionally, and we won't be recommending that council give them the full amount straight away. So you've got checks and balances around that through the application process. Then you've got the milestone payments, and then the third thing is that within the guidelines, and I think it's in the governance section of the guidelines, one of the things that we also stipulate is that we reserve the right for acquittal reports to be taken into consideration when evaluating future sponsorship applications. And within the current scoring system, there is a percentage of the score which the city uses at its discretion to apply. At the moment, that is 10% of what we evaluate because we want to make sure that we're eliminating as much personal bias and human intervention in these things as possible. But I think if I saw that somebody wasn't able to meet what they've said they would do, we would definitely take that into account if they applied again, and you would see that score go from 10 to, well, the minimum go to 0. And so that's another way that we have the opportunity to influence and make sure people have incentive to live up to what they say they're going to do.
Sure, thank you. And then just 2 topics. As far as the number of times in which other applications have been approved under the 10,000, is it just XTR Multisports that has been approved more than, so this would be the 4th time, or all the others either 3 or under?
Thank you for the question. I would suspect that that number is higher. I am very new to the position, but I would suspect that you would see a large number of these start to come to council pretty soon within the program, because some of these are organisations or events that have applied for funding in the past. Of course, we can get those numbers and put them in the pack for you if you like.
Thank you. And then just lastly, there's a condition in the program which talks about if a group is receiving funding from another program, that they won't be receiving funding under this program. So have we done an assessment for all of the applications, both under delegation and not, whether they've received funding through other city programs? Because it seems to, I think, the wording in the policy just talks about programs.
Thank you for the question. We have, and that's one of the reasons for aligning the new timeline of the corporate sponsorship assessments to the community grant assessments as well, to make sure that we are getting information at the same time and that we're able to check whether an organisation has already received some money from the city through those other programs. In addition, we will also talk to other teams within the business that we're aware do partnership agreements and just make sure that there's no double up. So there's both manual checking through officer-to-officer contact, but there's also the alignment of the grant rounds to make sure that we are able to compare apples for apples and ensure that they're not getting those funding sources from other areas.
Can I get on notice whether any of these groups have received funding from other sources then? I guess an example would be, say, if the Sea Sports Club has, say, a funding arrangement which the city might have through, I know I just use Sea Sports as a hypothetical example because they're not on the list here, a funding engagement through, say, the city's economic development team, where a program might be held. I know there was like a JBA event, it was run by the JBA, but we were sponsoring. In those cases, if other events are held at other locations around the city, have we checked off those sort of fundings? Does that exclude? Yep. I guess, can I get that on notice that there isn't any other funding being provided to these groups? Yep, thank you. Any final questions? Councillor Hill.
Yes, thank you. Just referring the attachments, clearly attachment 1, the corporate sponsorship programme council policy has been endorsed by council. Could I just check with governance whether the corporate sponsorship programme guidelines 2025-26 is a document that's ever been endorsed by council? Thank you.
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the question. Yes, so we have alerted Council to the fact that it's our intention to always notify Council if there's any changes to the guidelines. And the way that we do that currently is through the desk of the CEO, where we will let councillors know that there may have been some updates or changes, and then we attach the copy of the latest guidelines and we make sure that's circulated to all members so that we're completely transparent with any changes being made.
Thank you. And a second question, if I may. I'm seeing before me 10 different applications that have been considered by the administration, and recommendations have been given for those 10. Can I just check that all 10 of those have been thoroughly assessed against the council-endorsed policy and the publicly available guidelines prior to being recommended? Thank you.
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, you can be assured of that, and as promised earlier on, we will provide those applications and the assessments for elected members to view.
Thank you. I appreciate the verification. Thank you.
Any final comments? No, it doesn't appear so. So thank you. We'll then move on to item 1211, list of payments. Any questions on this item? Councillor Chester.
I'm sorry, did I get the call? I didn't hear you. Yes, looking first at page 582, invoice description, presentation, hiking in Japan. This is not a large amount, however, I'd just like to know what particular relevance this presentation had in terms of city business. Thank you.
Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll have to take that question on notice. I'm not familiar with the payment.
Thank you. Councillor.
And further, page 584, fourth item down, Crystal People Asset Protection, 12,342. I take it this was security for an exhibit of some kind. I'm just wondering over what period was that protection of security provided?
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that was a part of the Joondalup Festival exhibition this year. The protection was provided for the duration of the festival.
Councillor.
And further, page 585, Bipassi nominees for beacon equipment. Any information on that, please?
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll take that question on notice to provide the answer in the pack.
Thank you. That amount was for $22,000. Page 592, towards the bottom of the page, the Malanda Boulevard Bridge. I know it cost $4.5 million, but this invoice is for $535,000. I take it this is just the civil engineering consultancy fee. Is that correct?
Director.
Through Mr Mayor, I would suggest that's actually a part payment for the construction of the bridge, but I'll take the question on notice and provide the details of all the payments to that company in the packs.
Councillor.
Thank you for that. And finally, page 632, treatment of phytophthora, 32,000. Could I please have information on where that treatment occurred and any specific details? Thank you.
Director.
Through Mr Mayor, happy to provide those details in the packs.
Any further questions? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Page 637, trustee for BDG Trust, Bollig Design Group. Joondalup Library concept plans, 2,900, just given the relevance to earlier presentation, do we have any advice on the details of that payment, please?
Director.
Through Mr Mayor, I'm happy to take that question on notice as well and will provide the information.
Councillor.
Thank you. Page 593, 594, Digital Loop Proprietary Limited, 5,500 for Uptown campaign.
Director.
Through Mr Mayor, the Uptown campaign is a part of the City Centre's activation. I will speak to the relevant manager in the morning and provide details of what that payment's for.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And just seeking clarification, we had comment from one of the members of the public around the corporate business plan where we didn't advertise the sponsorship program because there was no available budget. But yeah, we've got spending money on other things. So just can we get some clarity on why there's money for that and what was the amount that we didn't have available that we could have advertised the sponsorship program?
Director Parry.
Through you, Mr Mayor, difficult one to respond to. Because there was a reduction in the budget for the sponsorship based upon the applications that we thought may be received, because we do have part payment upon agreement on the sponsorship, and then there is budget implications in following years. So we've reduced the budget for 26-27. However, whilst we didn't advertise widely on social media or promote it quite actively, it still remained on our website for organisations to be able to make applications as part of round 2 of the sponsorship.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Probably for some additional information, what would we typically spend when we advertise that? So when we advertised the first round, what did we spend promoting it?
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we'll have a look and see whether it would mainly just be social media campaigning. So it's not a significant amount. It's about the budget that we may have for future payments of committing ourselves to sponsorship payments when there was a reduced budget in future years.
Any further questions? Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll send most through, but there was one that I just wanted to chat about briefly on page 586. It's EF 136939, not a big amount actually, it's only $324.50. It's to Buggy Buddies Proprietary Limited, and the reference for the payment was Buggy Buddies social media ads. I'm wondering what that was. Is that a social media ad that we provided for them, and how are we paying people for their social media ads? I'm assuming they're a privately owned company, being that they're proprietary limited.
Director Humphrey.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll take the question on notice, but Buggy Buddies have been used before by things like Little Feet Festival. They have a following online, and it's very targeted advertising generally for parents within a given area. But I'll take the question on notice and provide exactly what that ad was for.
Okay, thank you. So just to clarify, when we can get that information, do we pay them for do we pay their social media ads, or how does this work? And is this the only case of this? That's all I'd like. I'm happy to take it on notice.
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, happy to take it on notice, but yes, we do pay sometimes for particular social media advertising, and this is one such company because they have a following that we specifically wish to attend a particular event. But I'll take the question on notice and provide the details in the packs.
Any further questions? I just have 2. They're both on page 590. The first one is Civica. It's the flexible payment platform for $17,000. With the progression of Project Axiom, I think we're moving to Microsoft D365. So where does this currently sit in the city's licenses?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the payable platform is not actually a part of our enterprise resource platform. It's a payment gateway that will allow ratepayers to pay via credit cards and establish their own payment plans. So it's separate to the ERP, and it's fully compatible with Microsoft Dynamics.
Thank you, Director. And then just the next payment down, which is Claudia D Proprietary Limited. So that's Elevated Experiences at $138,000. So it says flights, executive producer delivery. So could I just get an understanding what's involved in, I presume it's the Joondalup Festival, but what's actually involved in executive producer delivery and the flights?
Through Mr. Mayor, that's the company that arranged the transit from France to Australia of the artists involved at the Hillary's establishment and Crystal People. The reason that number is so large is the original flights paid for were cancelled in February when war broke out in the Middle East, and we've had to rebook them. There is an offsetting refund that also exists in the finance system. But I'll take the question on notice and provide the details in the packs.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I think we'll then move on from the list of payments. So I'm trying to go paperless tonight, but usually I've got my paper agenda with me. So item 12.12, financial activity statements. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of quick ones. Page 670, the financial statement. Depreciation and amortisation, we still have a negative variance of 2.3 million. Noting we made an adjustment of 2.7 million in the mid-year budget to increase the budget for that item. So just curious as to why we're still in a significant deficit.
Director.
Through Mr. Mayor, I will take the question on notice to provide details. Yeah, I'll have to leave it there because I'm not familiar. I haven't been briefed on it in particular.
Yep, that's all right. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And not only we get attachment of the capital works, and we also get one with the corporate business plan update. So just curious as to the variances if they're for the same period, because the actual expenditure matches up, but the year-to-date budget changes. So I'm looking at one for Hartleap Lane, which was a road preservation. In the financials with capital works, we say the budget was 87,000 and the actual was 133, so that's $45,000 negative variance. And yet, in the corporate business plan, we say the revised budget was $123,000, so it's obviously a much smaller variation. So which one's correct? How are we supposed to look at it and understand what's going on?
Director Humphrey.
Through Mr. Mayor, the attachments here are derived straight from the finance system. So that's the raw data. I will ask the manager or acting manager of financial services to liaise with manager of strategic and organisational development in the morning to reconcile the two amounts and provide details.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, thank you. We then move on to item 12.13. Any questions on this item? Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick one. I understand that we're looking at, I think it's Hickey Constructions for the refurbishment there. Just a question of the city firstly. How long has the relationship been between Hickey Constructions and the city of Joondalup?
Go to the acting director or Director Humphrey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly before my commencement at the city, I'm happy to take the question on notice and provide information to the elected members.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And then with that information, could you possibly provide for elected members a presentation of some sort which does a cost analysis of the original tender amounts versus the final amounts at the end of the projects, and also for the same sort of thing in terms of timelines for works, projected timelines of starting works and actual timelines of when they finish works?
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the first part of the question, yes, we can provide a sample of data, and if council wishes to pursue further, we can provide the contract variations because they're all documented, so we know when a tender price has been deviated from. So that's a fairly mathematical exercise, and I can provide that in a short period of time. As far as time start from what's stated in the tender, that would actually be quite a complicated process. I'd have to actually go through each of the tenders specifically and note when council resolved to adopt the tender and how many days. I would have to take that part of it on notice and provide a report at a later date.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, it's more the focus that I obviously wish to draw upon is more around the first part of the question there with the analysis of the cost amounts versus the final amounts that were paid on particular projects. If that's the important part I'd like to discuss at the meeting of council. Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may, can I suggest that perhaps we prepare a report for the next Audit and Risk Committee to look at, say, a sample of the last 15 tenders and any contract variations associated with them, because what's being requested doesn't directly relate to this item, and it's probably a more appropriate forum to allow discussion to occur, if that's okay with the elected member.
I think it's probably preferable, Councillor. Yep. Councillor Hill.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, just looking at the evaluation summary, which is not part of the confidential attachment, I see that Hickey Constructions is ranked qualitatively as number 1 and price ranking as number 1. If there has been any concerns with the performance of Hickey Construction on any previous projects, I assume that that may be reflected in the qualitative ranking. Is that something that would normally be taken into account? Thank you.
Acting Director? Or Director Humphrey, which...
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with respect to Hickey Constructions particularly, yes, that their past performance in working with the city and also their reference checks would determine what their score would be.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll move on to item 1214, proposed acquisition. Director Humphrey, I believe you have a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, Council, this item presents a request from the Catalina Regional Council to transfer land to the city as part owner at no cost to the city, which will then allow the Catalina Regional Council to proceed with selling the land on the city's behalf and other members' behalf. This will make the retail sale process less complicated for the purchaser and provide improved efficiency for the Catalina Regional Council. As outlined in the report, a small portion of land was transferred directly to the CRC following the creation of Bush Forever Reserve in 2006. This is the only piece of land the CRC directly owns. All other land sold by the CRC is jointly owned by its members and sold on their behalf by the CRC. It is not clear why this small portion of land was transferred directly to the CRC, but in all likelihood, the explanation is that when the land was moved between the government entities in 2006, the most efficient method was to transfer it directly to the CRC rather than creating shares to be held by 7 other local governments. Further, at the time, the development of the land, which is the last part of the estate, would have seemed so far into the future that it would be reasonable to allow the ownership issue to be resolved at a later date. There is no intention for the city to hold this land for any period of time. The land has already been approved for subdivision and development, with the resulting lots currently being prepared for sale. The transaction is intended to simplify the retail sales process, with the transfer then being in line with all other land transfers the CRC undertakes, rather than having an additional process that includes land with a separate ownership structure. As there is no cost to the city and that the city's effective ownership, that is our bottom line, does not change, the office is recommending that the request be agreed to. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director. Any questions? Councillor Count.
Thank you. You've essentially answered my question previously, more or less, but yeah, this seems to be a one-off as far as Catalina had this parcel of land, that everything else has been sold on behalf of the city. Thanks.
Director?
It's really, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. This is the only piece of land that the Catalina Regional Council has ever owned directly. The remainder of the land is owned in shares by the 7 member local governments.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Director. We'll then move on to item 1215. Of course, there's the confidential attachment. 1216. No. And that, oh, sorry, Councillor Chester.
Yes, thank you. I'll try and make this a question, not a statement. The city lost 3 trees in Kilrenny Park in Greenwood as a result of Main Road's WA activity in building their sound wall. So the question is, the city did appeal to the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation but got no response. Was this just part of Main Road's operating under its statewide clearing permit, CPS 818/17, where they don't have to be culpable for removing trees illegally? Thank you.
I think let's avoid the word illegally in matters.
inappropriately.
Yeah, thank you for the correction. Who would like to take that one? Acting Director? Yep.
Through you, Mr Mayor, as you rightly said, Councillor, that their clearing permit is far-reaching, CPS 818/15. We did make a gentleman's agreement with the Main Roads WA that before any trees would be removed, that we would actually discuss that and see if we could seek alternate directions for path networks and that to go. There's 3 trees in Kilrenny Park which slipped through the system, and when we found out, when we went to do the park, they'd already been in there and they'd been removed. We did make a formal complaint to DEWA. The Department of Water and Environmental Regulation did come back and they provided advice to the city in July 24. And that appeal against that clearing permit determined that Main Roads WA are to prepare revegetation plans in accordance with the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation to revegetate those areas. And that's what they currently have done. And at the moment, they have got it's under their care until the end of August, where the city will look at the results of that revegetation plan, and then we'll either take it over or request more work.
Thank you for that detail.
Thank you, Councillor. Any final questions on this? Thank you. We then move to item 13, reports of committees. Mr. Tempriccio, any further reports from committees?
Thank you. In responding to you, Mr. Mayor, there are currently 1 report from the Major Projects and Finance Committee, being the redevelopment of the Woodfords Library and Woodford Senior Citizen Centre, that will be submitted to Council, and 2 reports from the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, which will be listed in the Council addendum agenda. We'll not be able to create that in the agenda this Friday, and that's the Chief Executive Officer 3-yearly review on risk management, internal controls and legislative compliance, and the appointment of independent members to the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Tempriccio. We then come to item 14. Any reports from the Chief Executive Officer?
Again, responding to yourself, Mr. Mayor, at this stage, we are proposing to provide a report on the proposal for levying differential rates for the 26-27 financial year. Again, that will form part of the addendum agenda to be circulated for the Council meeting on the 26th of May.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Urgent business will be dealt with at the ordinary Council meeting held on the 26th of May. That brings us to motions of which previous notice have been given. I've received no notice at this time. Are there any elected members who wish to flag their intent to raise a motion at this month's meeting? Okay, I may have just a few motions I might put up, but I've got to discuss with some of the officers before I do that. Does anyone wish to announce a notice for the subsequent meeting at this stage? Item 17. No, thank you. In that case, that concludes tonight's briefing session. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Can I just check, are we going to do item 12.4, confidential item?
I actually asked, sorry. At the beginning of the meeting, I asked council members if they wish to ask any questions on that item.
Okay. I just make checking that hadn't been overlooked.
So when I asked the question, no one responded and said they wanted to ask questions on that, neither on the confidential attachments to the 2 items with confidential attachments. But thank you for bringing it up, just in case there was someone. In that case, that concludes tonight's briefing session, and I hereby close the meeting at 9:19 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for attending.